The next item that we're going to add into our form is the list/menu. And like the checkboxes and like the radio buttons, they're a way for you to present multiple choices to your user, but it does it in a slightly more compact way, which may save space on your form. So I'm going to pose a question. I'll say, what pets are you afraid of? Okay, and then I'm going to move over to my options, select list menu. Like before, I'm just going to bypass this input tag. All right, well, right off the bat, it's putting some kind of a pull down on my page. And in fact, I think I'm going to use the break and bump that to the next line. Well, I need to populate this with choices. When we used the checkboxes in a previous movie, as soon as we asked for the checkbox group, it gave us those options, but it's a little bit different when we're working with the list and menu. It comes onto the page, you then highlight it, move down into your properties, and I do want to make sure that I'm giving this an appropriate name so that when the form is sent back, it makes sense to what the responses are for. But then here's where you're populating that list, is with the list values. So after you've given it a name, click list values, and then this should look fairly familiar, very similar to the checkbox where I'm typing in a label which the user sees, and then the value which is sent back to the form recipient. So in this case, let's see what other things might I be afraid of. Okay, so you get the idea. I'm just adding elements. Again, the label is what the user, form filler outer, sees, and the value is what the form recipient sees. And if things weren't in exactly the right order, you can raise and lower them. Okay, so when I go into my live view, what pets are you afraid of? And it's a pull down type of a situation. But you notice that it already came up with something right off the bat, and that might be a little bit confusing. So I want to show you what I will sometimes do in that situation. So I'm going to go back to list values, and I'm going to add an item label, which is really a non-item at all. It's something that says choose from list, for example. And then I will make sure that that item is at the very top of my list, and it doesn't have a value at all. And in fact, you could just even, put some sort of placeholder in there. Okay, so that's going to make more sense to my user as I go into live view now. What pets are you afraid of? Choose from list. This really isn't a choice at all. They have to pick, one of these other options. But they can only pick one. Now, on the flip side of that, select list menu. We were working with the list. I can switch that very easily to from a menu to a list, and doing that will let your user be able to pick more than one option. I want to just tell you at the outset, this is not my favorite because I don't think it's very intuitive to your user that they can choose more than one and how to choose more than one, but nonetheless it can be done. I want to actually add a few more items though to the list, so let's just put in a few more. We'll put in the scary hamster. Okay. I'm now going to convert that over to a list. Once it's a list, you can decide how many items will appear at any given time. So let's say 3 items. And you can also allow your user to choose multiple items. So what that looks like, going into the live view, is a scrollable list, and I can choose more than one, but I would need to know to either use my Shift key or my Command key. So if you're using that, did that work? Do I have snake and hamster? Yeah, it's just a little bit buggy, and I don't think it's very intuitive for your user. The Command key wasn't really working. The Shift key gives a whole range of items that are selected. So my recommendation is to not use that, but I did want to show you when you're experimenting with the form elements that you do have the option of the list versus a menu, and just to show you what the differences are. Now, where you're going to see the menu a lot, and we talked about this earlier, is when you're using an address. If you're asking for the states, you could have someone just type in their state, but more commonly you might see the list that looks like this, where you're actually, pulling down and choosing your state from a list. Well, I found a website called mediacollege.com /internet/samples/HTML/state-list.html, and I will put this up on Blackboard. Someone has already gone in and created this list for you, and through the wonders of copying and pasting, we can use this in our own form. So I'm going to come to this bottom list and highlight everything from beginning to end. Copy. And in my form, we'll just say that the state will come right here after address. So I'm right here in my code, and I will paste. So there's all sorts of things here as well. There's different countries, the Canadian provinces and Australia and so on. But you can see this is something you would not want to have to type or enter every single time you're making a form. Oops, I have made an error here. I did not get rid of my paragraph tag. Let me get rid of that. Okay, so in the live view, through the powers of copy and paste, I now have this list. I can edit it if I want to. I can click on it and get right down here into my page properties and see that it's a state. I can list values. One difference, and I wanted to point this out, the label that your user sees does not have to be the same value that the form recipient sees. So in this case, the user seeing the full state name, but the person getting back the form will just see the 2-letter initial. So you can decide, for every type of list that you create, what that's going to look like for you.